All right, you're good.
All right, so we're going to get started. Okay, welcome everybody to the Spanish Fork and Salem Area Chamber of Commerce Business Series. This week it is marketing, and we have a special guest, Maggie Vale, and she is going to teach us how to market ourselves and our business using LinkedIn. So I know a lot of people probably have a LinkedIn or maybe have heard about it, but we want to teach you how to utilize it and how to use your LinkedIn to its full potential. And so we have Maggie here to teach us that. So we're thankful she's here, and I'll let her kind of introduce her business and what she does, and then she can take it away from there. If anyone has any questions, we'll probably have at the end, you can ask your questions, or if you think of one while Maggie is talking, you can put it in the chat box just so you don't forget, and we can get those questions answered. And then also, if you're unable to watch today, but obviously you guys are watching, we'll also have it on our YouTube channel. So the Spanish Fork and Salem Area Chamber of Commerce YouTube. So you can watch it there if you missed something or want to come back, you know, all that kind of stuff, or rewatch it. So, all right, I'll let you get started, Maggie.
All right. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for inviting me. This is something that you know, I'm passionate about LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is a great way for anyone to go out and network, be it using it for recruiting if you're needing to find employees or wanting to build relationships for business. That's what I've done for probably the past 5-6 years or more. My background is in recruiting. So I've worked in an agency and corporate setting. I currently own a small recruiting company that I just started a little while ago. And so I help companies find talent. I also can work as an extension to a company. So if you need ongoing help and just don't have the time, I love to help with that. I love helping small businesses. I also have a background in sales. And so not only do I use LinkedIn to find people when I'm doing recruiting, but I've used it to find all of the clients that I currently have, and built relationships that way. So that's a little bit about me. I think we'll just kind of go from there. I'll jump in. I do want to leave some time at the end. I wasn't sure what all to go over, so I'm kind of going over some quick basics and then the ways in which I utilize LinkedIn to network. Okay, there's a lot of things that you can do on LinkedIn, but I'm specifically going to share some of the things that I do. Okay. And then I'll leave time at the end. That way, if there's a really specific thing that you're looking for or you have a question about, I'll make sure to give you plenty of time to ask questions so that I can go from there. Because I think to give a really good training, I could probably spend a couple hours really getting into it. But we'll kind of go with that. So I'm just going to pull up my screen here. Okay. The first thing that I want to emphasize when you're using LinkedIn, especially when you're using it for business, is that LinkedIn is an advertisement. I would not treat it like a resume. You can include all of your past positions, past companies, and things like that. But you're going to want to primarily focus on the things that are going to help you in your businesses. So when you're creating your intro and the descriptions, you're going to want to emphasize things that are going to help you in your sales. I probably also don't want to look like a jack of all trades, right? Like if you have 50 different licenses, you do real estate and you have an old series, I don't know what you call it, like the financial licenses and things like that. I would just focus on sharing the things that you do. Okay. The other thing that I want to point out, and I've already pointed out that you want to treat it like it's an advertisement, is the way that you make things look. I won't spend a lot of time here. I'm sure you kind of understand the importance of making sure you have a really good picture, the importance of making sure Everything is sharp. There aren't spelling errors. I know that this may sound very simple and silly and common sense, but because I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, I see business owners who are even very successful that have profiles that don't look very sharp. So I would take the time to really make sure it's polished, that you have really good ad copy. The way that you describe your services is really solid. Don't have don't have a profile that's half baked, right? Like once your profile is up and it's active, people can find you and see you. And that one little half-baked profile or picture that looks kind of unprofessional could be enough to kind of break an opportunity. What I have here is just 2 cakes. And basically all I'm saying is, they could both have the same ingredients. You could be have a fabulous business and an amazing service. But if you present it poorly, that's what it looks like, and people aren't going to pay for it. They're also not going to pay top dollar for it, right? Even though what you may be offering is amazing. So that's just something that I want to emphasize. I'm going to quickly go over just a few little tips on the profile, because I don't know if there's any people on here who are kind of new to it. So I'm just going to briefly touch on this and a few little tips that I would keep in mind for when you're networking, okay? So I'm just using my profile as an example. Again, use a picture, make sure, I like pictures that make you look approachable. That means a big smile. I don't encourage looking really serious in these because you might not look as approachable. You can change the picture in the background, which I recommend. I think your profile looks more professional, right? Because it comes automatically with something that looks like it's a old 90s pixelated type of picture. It's not very impressive. So you can Google something or create something. The other thing that I would point out is right here where you have the business title. Again, because you are advertising a particular service, you want to focus on talking about what you currently do and you're selling and what you want to connect with people about. Sometimes people would put something generic up there. Sometimes I've seen a lot of people put like inspirational quotes and things like that. I do not recommend that. I recommend you getting straight to the point. Either put your title so that they know, hey, this is the president or business development person with such and such company. That way, when they go through and they see people reaching out to them, they immediately know who you are. So I would make sure to do that. Okay. Let me just go on that. The about section, this is where you can spend a little bit of time talking about what you do. And again, because going back to LinkedIn being an advertisement, this I would treat like a 60-second elevator pitch, right? You don't want something that's way too long because there's a good chance people are not going to read it. You want to keep it brief. You want to keep it concise. You want to focus on what you can do for them more than what you've done, like old responsibilities or things like that. People don't care about so much. You want to think about what's in it for them, right? And so I'm immediately, because I'm reaching out to people with about recruiting services, most of the time, I get right to the point, 14-year top-year producing recruiter, career strategist, and what have I done, right? And this is something that when I'm trying to reach out to business owners, I want them to immediately see what I've done and why it's important for them to talk with me. I would not treat this like where if you go back to a resume, someone might put an objective statement. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's where they might say, oh, this is what I am and this is what I'm looking for. And it's kind of all about you instead of what making it focused on what they're going to see immediately. Okay. And I just emphasize that right here. Objective summary versus a professional summary. So focus on them. Don't focus so much on you and what you want. Okay. Career, this is just the experience section. One thing I'll emphasize, especially for small business owners, is right up at the top. Well, not just right here at the top, but you're going to want to make sure that you have a picture where your company is. And so sometimes I see folks with small businesses, or maybe they're a contractor and they don't have a company page. So you'll want to make sure if you don't have a company page to create one. And I'll show you later how to do that. But it's just this one simple little thing that makes you look like a professional business versus like maybe a one-man shop or something like that, right? So make sure to do that. Education, volunteer, and then skills, you can list your skills and people can endorse you for those. And this is also something that you can use to build relationships with other people. Once you've been on LinkedIn and you're making connections, you can endorse other people to kind of keep yourself in front of them. Okay, this is the next thing that I want to spend some time talking about is recommendations, okay? When you're trying to build relationships, if you have an established company, sometimes that company can speak for you. Just saying, oh, I work for Adobe or something like that, right? Most people immediately are going to know who that company is and make some assumptions there. But if you're like a real estate agent, or if you're, have a smaller company, or doing business where they need to recognize you right away, I would reach out to people. You can start with people that you work with and get recommendations. One of the ways that I recommend doing that I utilize is I'll write a recommendation for the person I want to do it with. If you're starting with business relationships, I'll write them a recommendation, 2-3 sentences is great. And then in return, I will ask for one. I'll say, hey, I wrote this. I've really enjoyed working with you. I've been impressed by the service that you provided in this capacity. And here you go, here's the recommendation. In return, you most certainly don't have to if you don't have time, but I would absolutely love if you would do that. I'm doing business on LinkedIn now, and if you could write a recommendation for me, that would be great. And it's worked pretty much every time, minus a few people that aren't on LinkedIn a whole lot with me, but I think that's like a friendly way to do that. And the more that you have, the better. You can also have clients write recommendations for you as well. But I think that, again, when you think about advertisement, you think about trying to build a relationship and pressing people right away. I think having recommendations is a nice touch for your account. Okay. Okay. And I talked a little bit about the business page. This is what it looks like if you don't have it attached to a business page. It just doesn't look as nice. And how you can do that is you just click on this little work tab right here, and you come down and you can create a company page and upload an icon for it. And then that's how you do that, okay? If you are gonna spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, they're really particular about how many connection requests you send out, how many messages you send out, how many searches you do. If you get really, really active on there, it'll say, hey, you've reached your limit. Hey, you've had enough connections for today. And I don't know if any of you've done that, but if you're going to be on there quite a bit, you'll want to consider getting it. I think the lowest level of service you can ask for is the Sales Navigator. I believe it's like $60 or $70 a month. If you have a newer account, there's a good chance you might need that if you really want to spend a lot of time on there. If you have a more established account, you've had it for a year or two, and you have a lot of connections, you may not run into as much trouble. But that's just something to keep in mind if you're running into trouble and it's stopping you. This one, I believe you have unlimited searches on, okay? Okay, so now we're just gonna go ahead and get into the networking piece of it, okay? I want to emphasize that I believe that LinkedIn is not just for recruiters and not just for particular business types. I mean, I do see a lot of certain types of people reaching out to me all the time, and that they make a living using LinkedIn, but I sincerely believe that you can use LinkedIn to build just about any business. I even helped a friend who started a new alteration shop, to reach out to people, and she found customers using LinkedIn. And so if there's, if you're in a situation where building relationships with either, business to business, I think it works really well, but I think it can even be worked for quite a few different services. If you're like a realtor, insurance agent, mortgage loan officer, I know a lot of people who do those. Usually the higher ticket type sales work the best, or if you're looking for long-term relationships, those work really well. And we'll just go ahead and get into this. So I think where I want to start here is just talking about how to do a good search. Okay. Beginning with one thing I think I'll emphasize is you don't have to be friends with everybody. I would focus on people who you can help. And that may mean looking for people in your specific city. That may mean looking for people who work in certain business lines or whatever it is. I would be very specific, because you can build up to 30,000 connections, and sometimes people will just friend anyone because they're trying to build up their connections. And I am a little bit more particular and strategic about who I want to be friends with or connect with, because I'm building a business. And so when it comes to the search, let me just see. Okay. So I'm just going to explain really quick how this works. When you do a search, like if I'm looking for real estate agents or real estate companies, I just type it in here, select people, or if you're looking for other things, you can do that. I'd select people. One thing to keep in mind with connections, that's a little bit confusing for people who are new to LinkedIn. First connection are people that you're connected with. So if you're just looking to reach out to people you're already connected with, you could click on this and select first. If you're looking for people to connect with, those are going to be second and third connections. Okay. You can narrow it down from the location here. And then you can also click on this, all filters, to specify particular job titles or specific industry. So if I just want to reach out to people in the real estate industry, I can specify that, and that will help you. And then the other thing, and we don't have time to talk about Boolean searches. You could Google something to look that up if you would like. A Boolean search is just an advanced search that you can do in either Google or in LinkedIn. For example, right here, I can put real estate and, or I can put or I can put not, to include or exclude other words that I want in the search. So that's something, if you really want to get really particular with your searches, especially if you're recruiting, I would just Google Boolean searches and look that up, okay? The other thing I want to emphasize is on the locations. I know you guys are in Spanish Fork. When you're looking at locations, all it's really going to offer you is Salt Lake or Provo or like all of Utah. Here's how you get around that. If you want people in a particular city, you can put it in the search right here, just like I did. So I would just put, here's the position, and then I'll put and Spanish Fork or and Payson or whatever area it is that you want to target. And that way, because there's a lot of people in the area. So if you want people who live right in your city, that's going to help you to connect with them. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is when you are friending people, you're going to want to, I like adding a personal note, and I like it being personalized. So I will actually include their name, and I will add a little bit of a note like, hey, I'm networking with other businesses in Spanish Fork. I'd love to connect. Or I enjoy networking with people in the finance industry, or I happen to be in the same industry. I noticed that you are too. Let's connect. A little note, I've read that it goes a long ways, like rather than just seeing people that you don't know. If you give them a reason for why you're connecting, people are a little bit more likely, I think, to accept that connection. and a little note. Okay. So what I want to do is just give you a few tips to guide networking emails. Okay. I think that the way that you reach out to people, there is a special way of doing that where you're going to get a lot more people to respond. And I think probably the biggest thing is, well, I'll probably get into these things, is just keeping things personal. If they feel like you are reaching out to them and it's not just some big form spam email, I think they're more likely to read it and they're more likely to respond. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do is I always include their name. It takes a little bit of extra time, especially if you, like I build templates and I reuse them over and over, but I will take time to change the name in each one. Okay. Personalizing and customizing your message. Again, it's a little thing that takes a little extra time, but it goes a long ways. So for example, when I'm recruiting, I do kind of a long-term game because the type of people that I'm recruiting for some of the companies that I'm with don't move very often. So I'm usually sending them multiple emails to kind of just build a little bit of a relationship with them. And then I'll sell to them. And every type of, you know who your client is and you know how quickly you want to get there. But my first email when I reach out to people after this is I'll send them a thank you email for connecting. And I'll say something along the lines of, like in recruiting, I'll say something along the lines of, you have a wonderful LinkedIn profile. I love your experience. Tell me about such and such company. How do you like working for them? So I just asked them a question. And this is me because I'm trying to build relationships with people. And so it really depends on what type of client you're trying to reach. But if you personalize it, you're going to have more responses. And you may or may not have time depending on who you're reaching out to. But I think that that's important. Concise. I'm not a big fan of big long form emails. Okay. So like me, I'm reaching out to people about jobs. I will usually just say something like, hey, I noticed your profile. I love the experience. I think you could potentially be a good fit based off the experience you've shared. Here's a link to a job ad for a position I'm filling. Would you like to talk about it? Right. So if you keep it really short, and then maybe just a link to the information you want them to see, I think they're more likely to do that. And then if they want to learn more, they can click on the link versus sending them 5 paragraphs. A lot of times I see that and I immediately think spam, sales, and I delete it, or I might look at it, but I think when it's personal, short, right to the point, I get more responses. Okay. There's 2 ways to go about the LinkedIn thing, right? You can immediately reach out to people. You become a friend, you send them a sales email right away. And that's fine. And I've done that. I've had positions in recruiting that I have to fill really fast and I get right to the point. Obviously, I don't have time to build a relationship in that type of a setting. But if you're looking to build like business to business relationships, or if you're looking to build long-term relationships, I would keep that in mind in the strategy that you use. Okay. One of the reasons I feel like I do well, and I have recruited a lot of people. Okay. And I was going to share that later, but I've recruited close to 1,000 people in 5 years, which I don't know any recruiters who've done that amount of people like at that level. And part of it is because I do things that take a little bit of extra time, but they pay off more. And how I would translate that, I'm sure you guys know with marketing, is the closing ratio. You can reach a massive amount of people, but if you reach out to 1,000 people and only 2 people respond, that is a lot different if you reach out to 200 people and 20 people respond. And so what I like to do on LinkedIn is take the time to build relationships. So I created for myself a 5-step marketing email process. And so what I do is I send out a personalized message. I send out a thank you and just try to engage them in conversation. I'll send out like an introduction and let them know a little bit about me and maybe invite them to chat with me. And then I'll have something that's more salesy, right? Like, hey, I'd love to tell you about my service. Can we catch lunch or have a conversation? And then a follow-up. And then another thing that you can do to get in front of them is endorsing them. If you remember, I showed you the skills section where people will endorse your skills. I really just use that as like, part of my 5 steps process. I will endorse people because your name pops up in front of them and they're going to see you again. And it's like a kind thing to do. I think that when you're very, kind to people, it goes a long ways. And then you can build funnels, where you're reaching out to them maybe every 6 months or whatever. Other things that you can do on LinkedIn if you want to get in front of them again, is if you were to create a webinar, a masterclass, recruiting event, other events too, and you can reach out to people about those. So that's other things that you could message to people to kind of get in front of them so that you're not just asking for sales all day long. I believe that if you offer, if you're not just taking, if you're giving, people are more likely to want to work with you. I think it's just do unto others what you would have done to you, right? So if you're providing valuable services and, that's something I've done previously, I'm not currently doing because I don't have time to do a webinar or masterclass or anything like that. But those are opportunities that you can get in front of people, and you can utilize your connections on LinkedIn. You can have up to 30,000 connections. So if you're really going with that, you can build quite a network to be providing that material with. And I think I've already mentioned that. Just do things to stay in front of them. The other thing that you can do, which I haven't talked about because I don't spend a lot of time doing this, but there are people who will post things in newsfeed, just kind of like using Facebook or Twitter or something like that. So you can post things. There are people who build followings that way. That's another strategy that I don't personally do or haven't been utilizing, but I do see people who do that. You could probably spend some time Googling some tips like that if you're looking for a following that way. But I've never had to do that. I've had plenty of work to do just doing this. So, and then in regards to who should network, people use this for recruiting. You can do long-term, like what I'm doing, building these long-term relationships. Short-term, you just get straight to the point. More for blue-collar type jobs or more for people who would be on LinkedIn. So if you're just trying to fill customer service or manufacturing jobs, you're probably not going to find a lot of folks on there. But if you're looking for sales managers, accountants, things like that, it's great for that. Common businesses, the ones that I see do really well on there, recruiters, realtors, financial planners, insurance, mortgage, banking, marketing, MLM. Those are ones I see there on a regular basis. And I've also helped people. I've worked in business before where I've helped real estate agents and loan officers to market themselves on there, and they can make a living on there. Those are common, okay? But I really feel like just about anybody can. Business to business is a great place for business to business sales. And very good for longer term relationships and for larger sales. If you're just trying to sell, like, I know somebody who sells like little like masks or, things that are like really low ticket sales. I think LinkedIn probably would be a little more challenging for something like that. You could try it, maybe spend a couple months and see, but I think it works a little bit better for larger ticket sales, business to business, recruiting, and that type of thing. And that's everything. And then I already shared a little bit about myself. I do recruiting. I do career strategies. I teach people how to get ahead through, resume, LinkedIn, things like that. And I do a lot of recruiting. So if you ever need help, I have a lot of solutions that make sense for smaller businesses. And that's what I spend a lot of time working with, because larger recruiting agencies can be very expensive. And so I have solutions that work with that. So if you ever want to connect with me, you're welcome to reach out. But that is pretty much everything for me. And I'm happy to, time goes by so quick. I'm happy to stay a little longer and answer questions. So if there's something that you have a particular question about, I'm happy to answer. I'm going to stop the share here.
So I thought of one.
Okay.
So when you were talking about the search feature and you can put and put a city, can you put more than one city?
Yeah.
At the same time?
What you can do, I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm just going to show you here. And then you'll probably want to look up a Boolean search. You're probably not going to remember this. Hold on. I'm going to pull up my LinkedIn right here. So what I could do, I can do real estate and then I'm going to put, if I want multiple things, I'm going to put it in brackets. So I could say Spanish Fork or Basin or like that. Does that help? So, but
yes.
I would just look up maybe just a basic like beginner Boolean search, Boolean, I believe. I'll have to look that up, but Boolean search, it'll save you time because otherwise you have to do all these individual searches, but yeah.
Yes, thank you. I knew there was a trick to it and I didn't know if anyone else knew that. And so that's why I asked that question.
The other thing you want to keep in mind, I forgot to mention too, is if you put little quote marks, that will emphasize, if you want a phrase, it has to show up in this phrase, you can do quote marks. Okay, because otherwise it might pull up just Spanish or just fork, if that makes sense. So, okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. So with LinkedIn, do you ever put anything personal on there, or do you keep it like strictly business for all of your posts?
Like how personal?
Like generally I keep it business, like golf tournaments, marketing, all that kind of stuff. But then if I'm on like vacation somewhere, do I, you know what I mean? Or if I'm out to lunch with Fred, or I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like, do you keep it strictly personal 100% of the time?
You know,
or like,
I would keep it. This is a rule I've heard from a business consultant I worked with before. When it comes to like Facebook, it's like 80-20. You want to do like 80% personal and then 20% business. That way people aren't like, man, all she's doing is trying to sell me all day, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in LinkedIn, I would probably go the opposite, where I would put like 80% business. And if you wanted to share something like on your news feed that's a little bit more personal, I have seen people share things, but that were personal, but a little bit more business related, like maybe how they're dealing with COVID and they'll make a funny joke about stuff going on with their kids while they're trying to work at home. So I would consider that a little more personal, but it's related. I don't see people post a lot of just personal things. Like if you're just like, oh, I just got back from such and such vacation. I don't see that, but you could just say that was a much needed break. You know, I'm ready to get back to work again and tie it into work.
yeah.
I would just like, I might spend some time looking to see kind of how other people are doing it. If you find some influencers on there to follow. But I think that personal things can make it a little bit more, make you more human, right? So I would just tie a personal thought, like you could share something about yourself or how you feel about business or overcoming a challenge that's personal to you. And I've seen posts like that do really well. But I would just tie it back into work or business for the most of it is what I would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
I guess we kind of talked about with the personal and stuff, but like with your business page and stuff, are you wanting to, I know like with Facebook and Instagram, you know, once, twice a day, even sometimes 3 is acceptable. When you're posting stuff onto your business page and doing stuff, is there a set rule to follow? Is it a little less, like if you post a couple times a week, you know, what's that like your interaction? How often should you be interacting, I guess, on a daily to weekly basis?
You know, I think I would just pay attention to how many followers you have, right? Like currently I don't have anything up. I think because I took a shift with my business, so I pulled some of my posts down because they weren't related to what I'm doing currently. But I remember when I first established it, I went and I threw on like 20 posts just to make it look active, right? And because I only have a very small handful of followers, I don't post regularly. But I think if you have like a decent size following, I would probably just treat it just like any other, you know, page that you have. I'd probably try to do something once or twice a week, but it really depends. I would base it off of your own gut and how many followers you have, you know, because LinkedIn's just a little bit different. I don't spend a lot of time on that, so I would probably just kind of go with how many followers you have and is it worth the time? So yeah. Any other questions?
If anyone has any other questions after we get off, are they welcome to look up your LinkedIn and contact you that way?
Yeah,
perfect.
Most certainly. You're welcome to connect with me and reach out anytime. I'm happy to answer questions. You can message me on LinkedIn or even call me. I provide my phone number on there, so you're welcome to reach out anytime.
Thank you. So if you guys wanted to rewatch this, because there was some information, I was writing my notes and I was like, well, I'm going to rewatch it because I wanted to like go over something again. So we're going to have it on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it there too. So make sure you check that out. Just Spanish Fork Chamber YouTube. There you go. And yeah, we want to thank Maggie for taking the time to teach us today and let us know some little tips and tricks about using LinkedIn. And for our business series, I probably should have like went over this before, but we're going to take a little 2-week break, and then we're going to, because we have a lot going on in October. So we're going to start again the first week of November. Is that correct, Heather? I'm pretty sure it's correct, but just follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and then we'll kind of keep you posted of when they're going to happen. Just because we have other things. We have, oh guys, what's it called?
Sorry. So with the
There we go.
trick or treating and everything, we have some different things that are coming up, and we have our business summit at the end of the month. So we're alternating the schedule up just a little bit. So it will only be the first 2 weeks of the month. And we'll alternate the topics for the first 2 weeks until the end of the year.
Perfect. But yeah, just keep, you get the emails, and then Facebook and Instagram will post when everything is. And also tomorrow we have a new networking at noon. Randy's in charge of that one, and it's via Zoom as well. So we just put out the flyer for that today. So get ready for some questions and I posted about it. It's about, what is it, Randy?
We're going to be talking about kind of what kind of success you've seen in your business recently, and what kind of mentorship or help you can offer other businesses who might be struggling right now. So
perfect. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Maggie. We really appreciate it. And we'll see everyone next time. All right.